invest where Hollywood won't. It's a little bit of a spicy statement, right? But I fully believe it. This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. Garrett, how the heck are you, man? It's good to see you.
Good, Darren. Nice to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm really good. I feel awake and energized and excited to chat with you.
Yeah, we're coming in a little bit later than our normal recording time. So hopefully you are awake. But yeah, it is good. It's good to be here.
Well, it's because I needed to sleep in. I said I need another hour, Garrett.
Yeah. That I would not associate Darren Smith and sleeping in the same sentence. So nice try there, Darren. What are you really up to?
Okay. Well, I've been up to a lot of fundraising and up to a lot of conversations with amazing people and people that love movies and people that make movies. And it's just been so fun doing all of this kind of work. We mentioned last episode, I'm kind of itching to get back on set, but at the same time, I don't hate what I'm up to. So that's nice.
Yeah. All right. That's fair. That's good. It's a good thing. It's a good report. Well, we're recording this. Obviously, people aren't listening to this, but we're recording this on May 6th, which is the DVD release day, the official release day for Faith of Angels. And it's fun. I woke up this morning and we are the number one new release still on Amazon for Faith and Spirituality DVDs, which is great. I don't know how narrow that category is, but we'll take it.
Well, it's because of the massive marketing campaign and advertising campaign and the millions of dollars we put into that campaign, right?
I'll tell you, it is. It's the P&A. Yeah. No, it's so fun. It's the audience, I think, that you've talked about building on this podcast, and that awareness carries over from the theatrical efforts. And yes, we are definitely seeing people sell units. We picked up our big old factory order, and it's in our storage room right now. And in the spirit of Truly Independent, every morning my daughter wakes up and prints off the Amazon orders and fills those orders. So that's how we're gonna do. That's how we're gonna storm the castle. It's gonna be great.
I love it. I love to see it. This is actually a really great segue into our topic today. I've been having a lot of conversations with indie filmmakers and love having those conversations with indie filmmakers. But one thing that keeps coming up is like, how do you do it? And so today we kind of want to flip the script on how we think about independent filmmaking. So for a long time, we've been kind of taught that the studios and the streamers are the goal. Like if you're going to make movies, you got to put them in theaters, which means a studio needs to pick it up at a festival. Or nowadays it's like, can you get it on Apple TV or Hulu or Netflix or one of the streamers? But that puts us in a very needy position, right? If we can just get their attention, then we'll finally like make it and our movie dreams will come true, right? But I think, and what if that idea is backwards? What if they're actually dependent on us? What if we can talk about that for a little bit today? So today's episode, we're really talking about how to kind of reclaim some of that power back, get some leverage, and figure out how to be profitable, realizing that they need us maybe even more than we need them. So what do you think about that, Garrett?
Wow, this is a twist episode. This is that last final twist in the third act of season 2. So I love it.
Did we put a gun on the wall in season 1?
I hope so. I hope we planted the seeds and now they're going to pay off. We're just going to breadcrumb this thing all the way back.
Oh man, I really hope so. And you're going to keep me honest today about not being too preachy. And it's just, we're going to share our experience. But that's why I said that what you just shared about Faith of Angels is a really great segue into this, because what you've done is everything that we've talked about on this podcast for the last 2 seasons. And not to say that this is the end of season 2 or anything, but really it comes down to, if you can understand and realize the value that you have because of the movie you made, the story you're telling, whatever it is, look at what can happen. You can become the number one in a category on Amazon when you release your DVD, without any marketing spend, without a big campaign. I think you've posted about it and I posted about it. And here we are, right? And we don't have millions of followers. So like, here we are. So what that shows me, and maybe we kick off with this idea, is that Hollywood, or really the infrastructure around film, needs films more than we need the infrastructure. Or maybe it's an equal part thing. A lot of this, we're going to talk it through in real time and figure out
Yeah.
what we think about this stuff. But I think if we realize that, if whether it's a festival or an aggregator or a distributor or a streamer or a studio, right? They need product. If they don't have product, they can't sell anything.
Yeah.
And the product they sell is movies. And so they need us equally as much as we need them. It has to be a symbiosis thing. It has to be equally yoked. Without the movies, they don't have anything to sell. And so that's maybe idea number one. Instead of thinking like, how do I get noticed by a studio or streamer? What if we flip it? What if we say that, or what if we realized that they need a constant stream of new and original and even low cost independent films in order to stay alive, in order for their business model to work? How does that change your mindset as far as the thing you're producing?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it is a great mindset, I think, to recognize the value that you bring as an independent filmmaker. You say that you are contributing. You look at the last year's Academy Award, winner Best Picture, and several of the other nominees they are independent films and independently financed and budgeted and written and completely outside of the studio system, and yet Hollywood is recognizing that. So I think that there is value that, yes, that having that independent mindset, I guess, is what you're saying, is that we have to acknowledge that. What are we acknowledging? That they need independent film to keep Hollywood afloat? Or
I think so. I mean, if you think about it, our work fills the pipeline in some ways. Granted, they're doing, like, if we're just talking about Hollywood studios and streamers, for example, they're paying for and instigating a lot of the projects themselves, right? Like Disney is making Disney movies and Marvel movies and Star Wars movies. They're not looking
yeah,
for indies at festivals, right?
correct.
But where did they find those filmmakers who are making those movies? And they're not investing in development in the same way they used to in the 90s and earlier. And so where are they going to get the filmmakers of tomorrow? It's independent film, right? We've seen it time and time again. The people who are coming up and directing the next Star Wars movie, the people that are directing Marvel movies, the people that are coming
Yeah,
up through the ranks, they started in either, I can think of examples that came up through TV, and I can think of examples that came up through independent film by making something really great. Gareth Edwards comes to mind, right? Like, made something really great independently, gets brought up to the quote unquote big leagues. And we've talked about this too in a previous episode. But where are they getting their talent from? Because they're not developing them in house.
I
Gareth
think you
Edwards
can.
didn't come up through the Star Wars ecosystem. He came from outside because he had made something really valuable in the indie world.
I think that there are examples in every great, big IP uh, collection or series or whatever it is, trilogy. There are examples of that. Yeah, you got Gareth Edwards has done Star Wars. You get Chloe Zhao that does the Marvel, goes the Marvel way. Even Christopher Nolan with his, indie start,
And
and then
following before that, yeah.
what's that?
Following before that. And we can list a
Right, and then
ton, right?
he's doing the Dark Knight series, So
Yeah.
yes, and then I interrupted you,
No,
but
I
the la
interrupted you first.
well, and then even just recently, Jared Hess, Napoleon Dynamite to Minecraft. So yes, well, I mean, what a great way that independent film, like, we are fostering the future of these, large studio needs, these big IP projects.
Yeah. One part of it, I talked about how their model doesn't support the development of these filmmakers, like independent films. And I was talking with someone the other day, and I was just like, it's two different things. If you're a Hollywood studio, it kind of, let me back up a second. It kind of echoes this idea in the VC world where your fund size is your fund strategy. That's a common phrase that's used often. Common phrase used often. How's that for redundant? Of Department of
Department of
Redundancy
Redundancy, yeah.
Department? Okay. So the idea here is that if you have $5 billion under management, the things you invest in are going to be very different than if you have $5 million or $500 million under management. You have to make bigger swings, and you have to invest in things that are higher budget, because in order for you to get a return for your investors, you need to make bigger investments. And so the studios are kind of the same thing. They have to make $100 million bets, because that's the only way you're going to get to $1 billion outcomes. I don't think there's a single example of an indie, a 5 or 10 or even $20 million indie film that's done $1 billion. You have some that have done 100, 200, 250 million, but not $1 billion. And the number of indie films that break even 9 figures, or 8 figures, let alone 9 figures, is very, 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 very small, smaller than the number of $100 million movies that break 500 million or $1 billion. And so if you're Disney or Universal or Warner's, you have to make those types of investments in order for your business to make money. It would require so many more independent films than the ecosystem can even take on, because you can't release 1,000 movies from a single studio in a year. But that's what it would take in order, the numbers work out that way. Or even 100. Like if you look at Universal, they're releasing a few dozen movies a year. They're not releasing hundreds. And so the economics of their business model doesn't make sense for them to invest in independent projects anymore. So we need to stop expecting that they will, or that they'll go back to the 10 or 20 or $30 million projects, because it's not profitable for them.
It's so much money a day to keep, the marketing arm, the P&A arm of a studio in play, right? And I'm not going to try to even pretend like I know what that costs. I'm sure I could read it, but just yes. And so if you were to turn that focus onto some little piddly $2 to $5 million movie, or $10 million or $20 million movie, suddenly the reality of that movie generating what you need to pay for the attention and time of the team that you've built to market these huge movies, yeah, it's a no-win situation, right? So I think that's why we see small breakoffs, like Disney releasing still through Fox, or these Paramount Classics or whatever it is, these smaller indie studios that can release on a more of a economical platform, and it can probably target some of these lower budget films to be able to do that. Essentially, in my mind, it creates this sort of balance, this market balance, right? We've got these indie films that typically have these lower production budgets, and they can have a little bit more flexible distribution strategies, and hopefully the ROA put towards these indie films kind of balances out what you'd need for a big ROI on a huge budget movie.
Yeah. It speaks to, who was the guy that a year or two was saying, Killers of the Flower Moon was a $200 million movie, and we could have made 20 $10 million movies or $200 million movies or whatever it is. And it's like, well, yeah, we could have, but the people that invested those $200 million into that movie saw value in that opportunity, and they don't see the same value in $200 million indie films.
I had a really good meeting this week, I guess last week, but we haven't talked about it yet, with a company that wants to invest in film, right? And they said, look, we're a media company and we're missing a spoke of long format, narrative filmmaking. We do a lot of YouTube, a lot of podcast stuff, and a lot of internet and blog space and stuff, but we'd like to get into film. We said, okay, so we started talking about kind of the budget ranges, and we said, look, I've got several scripts and available, and we can budget them out at about $2 million each. And for that, this is what that gets you. And they started, and then we also talked a little bit about P&A, what would be needed for that, and say, okay, $2 million movie, you're going to want to spend it, at least 50% of the amount of that budget, so an additional $1 million for P&A if you want to do a theatrical release and have some sort of market penetration. And they were very, very interested, very supportive, and the numbers were all working out. And then they said, look, what if you had more? Like for your script, what if you had more? Why couldn't we get a big name actor or something like that? And so just like you're saying about that Killers of the Flower Moon, 200 million versus, you've got Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio, and say, look, could that movie have been made for less? Yeah, maybe, absolutely. Um, maybe absolutely. Yeah. And so on a very, very small mindset of that, they're asking, hey, your $2 million script, could it be made for more? And the answer is yes, it could be. But it has to be part of the whole big picture, though. Like, what do we get for more? And can that story support it? And why would we do that? And so ultimately, all of those decisions have to be in play. I don't know what my point is, other than I, I relate to saying, making a bigger budget movie isn't necessarily the right thing to do all the time. There's value in having that maneuverability of kind of an independent budget and independent mindset and kind of the independent recovery that is needed
Yeah.
for indie film.
But you think about it too, like on the flip side of that is understanding how they're thinking about it, which is if we make a 2x return on $100 million, that's $100 million we just made for very simple math, right? How many movies would we have to make in order to make $100 million? Even if you got 10x instead of 2x on
Yeah.
$1 million movie, you still only got $10 million instead of $100 million, right? You have to do that 10 times. How many $1 million movies make $10 million, right? It all just starts to break down when you think about how they have to think about it. So a $200 million movie that's 2x, that's 200 million to their bottom line, which helps them be profitable. They don't have a way to make $200 million on a bunch of indie films. They just don't. And so that's why they don't invest in them anymore. It makes a lot of sense when you realize the types of revenues that they need in order to be not only profitable, but growing quarter over quarter, because that's what they're incentivized to do, because they have shareholders to report to, right? So just realizing that Hollywood needs us. I don't know if I would say more than we need them, because that seems precocious or something. Like it seems a little bit too grandiose of a statement. But I think if we realize that they also need independent film, just in a different way than directly, it's indirectly that they need us. They need filmmakers to be developing their craft and connecting with audiences and making good movies. And that's what helps feed their business model down the line.
Darren, what is it, in your opinion or in your research, what I'm trying to figure out how to phrase my question. You got this $100 million movie, and what a great point that, hey, if I can turn that into a profit, as $100 million profit. What would it take me to make $100 million profit in independent films? And it's like, that script hasn't been written. What about the losses, like on that? What's your take on that? I'm going to risk this $100 million budget movie and put it out there, and it does a full-on Joker 2 flop, and you go, oh, now I'm in trouble.
Yeah, that's part of the deal, right? Was it Warner's that did Joker movies?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're killing it right now with Minecraft and Sinners, and they killed it the year before with Barbie.
Yeah.
Like, they're hit and miss, maybe 1 out of 10, where they have a flop, so to speak, but they have others that are 10xing or 5xing or 2xing, and they're fine, right?
Okay.
So I think it's part of the deal. And part of it is that they have a much more robust business structure than independent films do. Ours are very much like, sometimes it's a single deal. We're going to take it to a festival and sell it to somebody, and that's a single deal, and then the movie's done, right? They have so many other ways of exploiting those properties, the IP, whether it's through merch, whether it's through brand deals, whether it's through theme parks, whether it's whatever, that we get so myopic about, oh, it lost money in theaters. Well, who cares? Like Fall Guy did not make money in theaters, but it made lots of money in streaming.
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
we don't know how much because they don't share those numbers, but nobody at the end of the day was losing their job because of Fall Guy. And so obviously it wasn't that big of a deal. The way I think about it is that they probably understand their business better than I understand their business. And they
Sure.
realize that 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5, whatever the numbers are not going to hit. Because if they had figured out how to make profit on every single movie, they would have done that by now. We've had 100 years in this industry to crack that nut. And it goes back to that William Goldman statement of nobody knows anything. Uh,
Yeah.
Not nobody knows anything. Like people know a lot of stuff about a lot of things, but there are a lot of things they can't know because it requires an audience and their agency to decide whether they want to see a movie that weekend. So, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, okay. So one of the things I'm going to shift gears um, that independent film does allow, because we're not dealing with these $100 million budgets, is a little bit more innovation and risk taking, like on a very low scale. And it's kind of this. We have this laboratory for bold storytelling or unique perspectives, or honestly like niche type storytelling. As a faith-based filmmaker, for a long time, Hollywood, as I say in air quotes, was not interested in faith-based stories or faith-adjacent stories. We're seeing a change in that now, thankfully. Um, but I think that has a lot to do with this independent film, people taking risks without having these constraints of studio expectations. We are able to pioneer new genres, new structures, whatever, new techniques. We're going to shoot this with a lower budget camera, and then suddenly you get a big, huge budget that's now using that same camera because it's proven. Um, I think just the amount of risk taking and innovation that we can do, I think Hollywood needs that from the independent film market.
Yeah. Yeah. I use a phrase on my LinkedIn in order to get people to click on a link, and it says invest where Hollywood won't. It's a little bit of a spicy statement, right? But I fully believe it. Like we have to invest in the stories that Hollywood won't invest in. Otherwise, we won't have them. They won't exist in the world. So again, you go back to all the filmmakers you listed that are at the studio level now, and you realize that they got their start making micro budget movies or low budget movies or indie movies that are sub $10 million, the stuff in the 1 to 4 million range.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, so those are some of our favorite movies, right? I think Memento was a $4 million thing. You've got Jon Favreau and Greta Gerwig and Edgar Wright and like all these people that we love watching their movies now and going, oh yeah, they started with small stuff,
You
but they
believe that?
came up with some of my favorite things. Shaun of the Dead, I think, was another one of those that was like $4 million. Like a studio couldn't have done that movie that way, and it wouldn't have been as good if it was a studio movie.
So
Yeah.
last again, another story, not to be self-indulgent. Last week I had a meeting, or 2 weeks ago, with a distributor that wants to do short films. They want to get into short films, and so they put this kind of an RFP out to a bunch of indie filmmakers, local filmmakers. Said, look, we want short film ideas, and we will fund your short film. We'll go through the top 5 films that we kind of vote on. We'll do read through. We're going to fund. And I was thinking, oh, great. Nobody's ever done this. This is fantastic. And then they said the amount that they're going to fund the films. And the budgets were um, really not conducive to being able to make anything. Um, and yet we had all these filmmakers there, and so we're kind of like, oh, how do we do that? How do we communicate to them? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this distributor, this studio, probably knows. They know that it's a challenge for the independent for any film to be made for this particular budget amount. And I was thinking, why am I doing this? Like, why would I waste my time into this? The more I thought about it, I thought, hey, this is an opportunity for me to, yeah, if I want to delve into this, if I want to do some of this either risk taking or experimental film. Maybe I want to shoot. Maybe I want to shoot on an iPhone and see how that works. See what I can do with that. So it became an opportunity where it was very much probably a Hollywood mindset going, how do we look into independent film? Now this is like an independent film mindset going, how do we look into this micro, like mini budget film storytelling. And it opened up that opportunity to say, yeah, I want to do this because I want to test things out that might benefit later our larger budget indie films.
Yeah. It's the idea of investing in development. Like, you don't make any money back from development, but you put aside 10% of your budget for your movie for development, whether it's on that project or on other projects. All of a sudden, you've got good projects down the line. It takes a while and it takes some investment, and it's not a direct return. Like, most short films don't have a path to profitability. They don't make money.
And
But
they don't have a budget. Like most of them are not funded. They're usually like
right,
self-funded. Yeah.
exactly. Like, the idea of having a $50,000 or $100,000 budget for a short film, I mean, we're starting to see some of that with like the Angel Guild and their torches that people are investing. I've seen 50 and 100 and $200,000 budgets into those things, but they have a pretty good idea that they're going to do well and get greenlit for a show or a movie, and that some of the footage that they use is going to be part of it, or whatever it is. They know that that money is not wasted money. But yeah, just a random short film idea that's going to go on YouTube. How do you make money on that? But that kind of leads to another thought I wanted to bring up is, where is the leverage with all of this? Because if we think that Hollywood holds the keys to the gate, right? They are the gatekeepers. They have all the leverage. We have to, go with whatever their whim is. We have to calculate, oh, what are they into this year? Is it horror movies? There's something like 30 horror movies coming out this year. And historically, Jason Blum has said this, that the market really has an appetite for 10 to 12. So good luck with those other 15 or whatever that are not going to land, because they're oversaturating the marketplace this year. We'll see how that plays out. But understanding that, again, if we see them as the ones holding the keys to the kingdom, then that puts us in a one down position. Like, we have to do whatever they say. And that takes away all the creativity. It takes away the types of stories we can tell. And it breaks the whole ecosystem. Like,
Yeah.
again, what they need, the infrastructure of festivals and distributors and studios and streamers, whatever aspect of the industry, even the lenders that are putting money against minimum guarantees or tax credits or those types of things, all of that falls apart if movies don't get made. So the most valuable thing in the whole ecosystem is the film, whether it's a studio film, whether it's an indie film, whatever it is. But like, if you're a filmmaker, if you're a maker of films, you are making the most valuable part of that whole value chain. And we have to realize that. We have to realize we hold the value. Like, we're creating it, and none of the other things exist if movies don't exist. You can't have a festival without movies. You can't have lending without movies. You can't have tax credits without movies. You can't have international sales and distribution without movies. Because what do they take to the markets if they don't have a movie? So you have the ability as the filmmaker, at least this is how I try to see my position as I'm out raising money and asking the question as well. How am I going to do this? Where is the leverage? And if I went into every conversation saying, please give me money, I think what I'm going to do is valuable somehow. They would feel that sense of need. They would feel that doubt. They would feel that uncertainty, and they'd go, yeah, no, thanks, man. But me going in and saying, this is the only one of these, because it's me that's in charge of it and I'm running it and I'm the general partner of this thing. Like, if you want these types of movies produced by me, this is the only way to get it. And I only have room for 5 to 10 investors. I don't have room for 100 people. I'm not doing a big crowd fund raise. It's 5 to 10 investors or family offices or whatever it is. And that flips the switch. They go, oh, this guy's going to do this with or without us. And if we want to have our name on this, if we want to be involved with this, then all of a sudden we better get on board. We better hurry up and make a decision here. And that sort of momentum carries everything through. But it started with that mindset shift of, man, it went from me going, why would anyone ever invest in me? I've never raised money. I don't have a proven track record of 10x films in the box office. I don't have those things. Okay, but what do I have? I have the leverage here and here and here. So I could take that out to the market and say, here's the opportunity. And it's a limited time, limited amount of people. All of a sudden shifts that leverage from them to me, right? So that's what I think every filmmaker has to realize is you hold all the leverage. You hold all the value. Your thing is the thing, your film is the thing that makes everything else in the industry work.
But I'm gonna take that soundbite and just loop it because that's a great pep talk right there.
Awesome.
And there's truth to it. So um, yeah, I don't have anything to add to that.
No, that's great. I spent a little time analyzing the deal that everybody was talking about this last month, the Ryan Coogler deal on Sinners, and how on earth was he able to pull that off? Well, it wasn't only because he was a successful filmmaker. He's had, billions of dollars in box office between Black Panther and Black Panther 2 and Creed and all the other projects he's been involved in. Again, started as an indie filmmaker with Fruitvale Station, right? So here we go again. But what has he done over his career over the last 10, 15 years? He's built an audience. He's built people who trust that he's going to tell a certain type of story for a certain subset of people that's going to resonate, that's going to inspire, that's going to bring that community together. And all of us on the outsides of that community are going, this is unique and I can't see this anywhere else. And I love this guy's filmmaking. So I want to go see it too. And so he has massive success with Sinners over now 3 weekends. But everybody was talking about the deal. And the thing that he realized that I think speaks to what we're talking about here today in this episode is he held the leverage. If you want Ryan Coogler, there's one of him. If you want the next Ryan Coogler movie, there's one of those things. So he can go, and he's doing it at a different level. He's going and talking to all the studios, the big 6 studios, and saying, I got the next Ryan Coogler movie. Whereas we might be going to mini majors or smaller local distributors or TV networks or whatever it is that we're going to. But we can do the same thing. We can say, we have the leverage. There's one of these. We've built an audience over time. We know that they're going to show up and buy tickets because historically that has been true. And you can say that the same thing, Garrett, because you've had how many movies that you've put in theaters and people showed up. So you can go to the next investor or go to the next distributor and say, look, every time I've released a movie, people have shown up. So it's likely that they're going to do it again. And I've been building my audience. So it's likely that the audience is going to be even bigger next time. Right. And you can just keep riding that train and saying, if you want the next Garrett Batty movie, you better get on board because there's only one of them and it's happening right now. And that little momentum shift is something we can learn from Ryan. He did the same thing. He said, I have the leverage. You want the movie. You need movies. If you want the next Ryan Coogler movie, it's going to make money for you. It's either you or one of your 5 competitors.
Yeah.
And so he was able to craft an even stronger deal for himself where it's like the rights revert back and he's getting first dollar gross and all these other things because he had the leverage. So if we can take that same lesson from Coogler, we're going to be way better off. And what does it do for everybody involved? It makes the enterprise more profitable. It's like going to be a very, very profitable movie for Warner's, for him, for everybody involved, because he did this strategy.
So in order to get that leverage, I guess that's where we're at, is independent film, developing that skill set, building that audience, creating that following, so that that's a talking point and a point of interest for bigger and bigger investors. Is that right?
I think so. I think it goes back to this idea too of being so good they can't ignore you, which is a book by Cal Newport and a statement made by Steve Martin when everybody asked him, like, how do you become an actor? How do you make it in Hollywood? How do you get your break? And he says, well, you become so good they can't ignore you. And it's like, it's hard because how do you measure that? But we all know the 10 or 15 or 20 indie filmmakers that are now directing studio movies. So that's the bar. Like, you got to make those kind of indie movies. You have to make them that good. The Ryan Johnsons and the Greta Gerwigs and the Jon Favreaus and all those directors that are now doing it at the studio, they became so good that the studios could not ignore, man, what if we gave Greta Gerwig $100 million budget and let her do Barbie? What would that look like? Oh, the $1 billion box office. That's what it would look like, right?
Yeah.
So you have to prove with your craft and your talent and your films and the stories you make and the way that you make them, that you are so good that they can no longer ignore that you exist. They can
Yeah.
no longer ignore your call when your agent calls them to take a meeting because you just did Lady Bird or because you just did Memento or because you just did whatever. So I think it starts there. I think it starts with you have to make the choice of like, well, let's put it this way too. The caveat of that is, or the opposite of that is, the industry doesn't owe you anything. So just because you want to be a filmmaker doesn't mean that you get an audience. You're not just gifted it on your way in. It's not like a monopoly. You go around, pass go, collect $200. There's nothing is owed to you. So you've got to earn all of it. But if you keep going and keep going and keep going, you can do it.
Okay. Darren, I've covered my talking points. We talked about audience engagement, and community building. We talked about economic, that balance, talent discovery or a career launch pad, and then the innovation and risk taking. And we also mentioned diverse voices. Those are all incredible values that independent film affords us, and I believe, are things that Hollywood needs from the independent film market.
Yeah.
In addition to film.
Yeah. No, I feel like I've said more than my piece. I think if we can just realize that going back to this big idea of building an audience, if you shift who you serve, then the people you ultimately want to work with as well will start showing up. So if you serve the audience, you're going to build an audience, and that's how you become so good that the studios can't ignore you anymore. But if you keep trying to just serve the infrastructure or the studios or the streamers at ignoring the audience, I think that's not the way to go. So that's maybe the last mindset shift for today.
Well, you've summed up exactly what my response to them. The people with whom I met, the investors said, "Well, what if you had more? What if you had 10 million instead of this $2 million movie? What if you had 10?" And I said, "Okay, well, let me take a look and think about that." I'm meeting with them this week, and my response is a 3-year plan to them and say, "Look, here's where 10 million gets you. Let's make the first $2 million movie and market it, and then follow that up on the heels with a $4 million movie. And now it's generating. I'm probably just describing your film fund, but in 3 years, I said that $10 million won't be a $10 million thing. It'll be a $30 million budget that you'll want to now put into our next series. So we've got 2 films a year and a series, and so we'll build that." So that I get to go back and pitch that on Wednesday, and this discussion has fueled that enthusiasm for this discussion I'm going to have.
Awesome. Well, then it was timely and inspired.
Timely and inspired. Thank you. Well done, as always. Good. Anything else going on? Anything else we need to cover?
I don't think so. We're going to save some of the breaking news of this week for a future episode, maybe. But
that's not talking about tariffs, is it, by
oh
chance?
gosh, the Trump foreign film tariffs? Is those that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. All right.
Everybody stop freaking out. They're not real.
Thank goodness we're not a breaking news podcast.
Yes.
But we are an opinion podcast, and so we'll definitely have an opinion about that.
Well, and if those types of tariffs are implemented, it will have a very big impact on our industry. I'm not taking a lot of time and energy out of my day to think about it because it's not real yet. So if and when it becomes legislation, we can look at it then, but we have zero details as to what they are and what they mean and how they're going to be implemented and what applies. And so I read it and I thought about it for about 2 minutes and then I stopped thinking about it.
I'll reserve my opinion for the future podcast. If you want a preview of my opinion, you can go to tariffsaren'treal.com.
There you go.
All right. Darren, thank you. Great episode. And thank you to our listeners. It has been so nice to be able to talk with so many of you and hear your questions and comments and feedback. Please continue to send those in. Keep those coming.
Awesome. If you guys are having conversations about indie film, please share the podcast with your friends in those conversations because we like having the conversations too. If you have questions, shoot them over. You can go check out 3coinpro.com/podcast. There's a way to submit questions that we can answer on the podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So let us know. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.